Welcome back, everyone, to our definitive ranking of Wind Waker dungeons. So far, we've only ranked 2 games.
Two dungeons. The Forbidden Woods is definitively better than the Forsaken Fortress.
Which is the worst dungeon, clearly.
Of the 2. Let's move right along and see what number 3 is. Drum roll here? I don't know. We've got the Tower of the Gods.
All right.
Okay. What is your initial thoughts on the Tower of the Gods?
Tower of the Gods, it has a lot of factors we were talking about with Forsaken Fortress that stick out to me. Awesome story moments, more so than the other ones. Way more awesome atmosphere. One of the only ones where the music, I think, really sticks out for me.
The Forsaken Fortress actually has some dungeon music, but it's very repetitive. I don't know, can you even think of it in your head, what the Forsaken Fortress music is?
They're more, the Forsaken Fortress I can, actually.
It's like the same few notes over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
It changes a little bit, but it's probably like a 1-minute track on repeat.
Yes.
And you hear the same...
I don't know if that's much different about Tower of the Gods.
No, it's not much. In fact, I would say the majority of the dungeons, even some of the ones we haven't gotten to.
Mm-hmm.
The dungeon, I would say, generally, the dungeons of Wind Waker, the music is more atmospheric.
Yeah.
It's kind of playing in the background.
Yeah, so it doesn't quite matter if it's only a minute long or whatever.
Yeah. Forbidden Woods music has a little more instruments to it. Mm-hmm. If you go back and really analyze the music, at least it actually has, it's not the same. Like the Forsaken Fortress is literally just a little drum beat and then that's it.
Yeah.
Over and over. This other one has chimes. The Forbidden One has some chimes and bells in there. And
yeah, they're all very fitting for where the location is, though. I'll say that. But Tower of the Gods has that thing that, when we were looking back before on Ocarina of Time music, like the dungeon music, they almost all have that thing at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Like the Spirit Temple has the dun dun. Yeah. That immediately puts that in your mind.
That has that.
Tower of the Gods has that, where I can't really say that about a lot of the other ones.
Yeah.
So that just sticks out to me.
And the beginning of the Tower of the Gods, you have to include sort of the uncovering of the Tower of the Gods as part of the dungeon, I would say. Because you've gotten the 3 pearls and, creates that triangle, and up from the water comes this gigantic tower.
It is easily the most epic of the dungeon entrances you could get in a game.
Yeah.
In the game.
Yeah, you sail into the dungeon on the King of Red Lions.
Yeah. Yeah, you ride on him in the beginning part too.
Yeah. I kind of view the first third of this dungeon as I think this dungeon, unlike some of the other dungeons, has a clear beginning, middle, and end. The beginning portion, it's almost like a water themed dungeon, because the water is constantly rising and falling, and you're sort of navigating along on the boat. I like the atmosphere, but I don't literally like waiting for the water to go up and down.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it has some decent puzzles with that, but it's one of those things where it's once you know what to do, and if you mess up and then you have to wait for the water to redo it, it's just kind of tedious.
Yeah.
I like what they're going for, but it is a little tedious in those parts.
I feel most of the puzzles revolve around they're blocks. And they just start floating up, and you jump on them, or you got to put them on a switch, or it's stuff like that. Yeah. Just to jump across to light a torch.
And the one specifically where you got to jump on all the blocks to make a bridge, if you could line them up, but mess up the jump a little bit, and then it's okay.
Go back, do it again.
I have to wait for the water to go down so I can readjust the blocks, and then wait for the water to go back. It's a lot of waiting.
Yeah. The puzzles are okay though. I don't think there's anything bad there.
No, like I said, I like the puzzles. It's just I don't really like waiting for the water.
This might be something that it's a repeat playthrough type thing.
No, I think that part is still annoying. Okay. In general. You can figure out what you need to do in that one room where you got to make the block bridge, almost right away. Mm-hmm. And then it's more of trial and error that's something that's I don't know the puzzle because I've done it before. I knew it the first time I did it, essentially.
Right. You kind of get through this first third of the dungeon. Then I think the second third, the middle, the bulk of the dungeon really, is you're no longer in the water. The boat's long gone. And this is where you learn the command melody.
Yeah.
And you get to move around. There's like a series of rooms and puzzles with these statues. And you get to control the statues and lift them and move them around.
Yes.
And it's sort of like the introduction to the command melody because it's clearly a big part of some of the later dungeons.
Yeah. Like I've said with the game as a whole, it does a good job of like introducing ideas and then like building them up. This is a case of that, where it's like first you got to move those statues in the water part.
Yeah.
Then it's like you got to control the statues. And the dungeon does a good job of taking advantage of all your items, your arsenal at that point. You know, there's rooms where you gotta swing and float around, and
there's that room where there's like the lasers or something. It's like a barrier you can't get over, but then you can jump from a higher part and float over with the Deku Leaf. It's worth noting that this is the mini boss of this dungeon it's just a Dark Nut, but it's the first Dark Nut you fight. The Dark Nuts are kind of fierce in this game. This is like their coming out party, I think. Like they're
sure.
You don't want to mess with the Dark Nuts. I think they're tough enemies. At this moment, it's just a single Dark Nut as the mini boss. But then, 8 hours later in your game, you're in a narrow room with pillars and corridors, and there's 4 of them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Same thing with, like, Mothula.
Right.
Yeah. I like that, too.
Dungeon item is the bow. It's pretty standard, I would say. Like, I don't think it does anything special. One thing I do like, this dungeon is, I think, the first dungeon they introduced where you're retracking through previous rooms, and suddenly there are new enemies that appear. So you get the bow, and then suddenly there are wizrobes all over the world that you got, and it's it uses the dungeon item, the bow.
Yeah, it doesn't do a whole lot for me in like how some of the other items did in like a puzzle sense. Like I think more favorably of like the Deku Leaf or even like the grappling hook or whatever because of its implications and like how well they used it as a puzzle. Whereas like you get the bow and it's cool because a lot of enemies like that were annoying before. The
bubbles, those are the fire bubbles, I think.
Stuff like that. Yeah, you can. Well, we were playing it in a dumb way too. But
yeah.
Nonetheless, like it becomes like, oh, now there's a bunch of stuff for you to shoot.
Yeah.
There's eyeballs you can shoot, but like that's also not a puzzle. Like I'm thinking that room with all the eyeball platforms.
Yeah.
The
eye switches.
I don't like that really.
Yeah.
It's just like kind of more trial and error, and
generally I would say it's a very combat oriented dungeon as opposed to a puzzle, especially the second part. The bow is a weapon.
Yes.
It's not a navigational tool like the grappling hook or the Deku Leaf. So you eventually come to the dungeon boss, Godan. And what are your thoughts on him?
He looks really cool. I don't know, he's kind of easy. I mean, not the same, really, any of the dungeons are that difficult, but it is kind of like, you know what to do almost right away, and it's rinse, wash, repeat a little bit.
Yeah, I like that you're using the arrow and you're using bomb. There's like, it's a little multi-layered.
Yeah.
You gotta throw the bombs. But I think it's hard to bring him up without thinking of, like, some of the other bosses that look like him. Because, I mean, most people think of Bongo.
Yeah.
Like, I think most people think his name is Bongo.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and it's not just, I think his name was Ramrock in Oracle of Ages. There was a similar boss. And then there was, I think, Mazel and Minishcap, which came out after. But this is like a reoccurring theme of, like, a head and 2 detached arms that are an enemy.
I don't know, his design is different and unique. Like,
he looks cool.
It doesn't just feel like, they took Bongo and put him in here, like, mechanically, yeah, but he feels unique enough.
Yeah.
I mean, he sneezes out arrows, right?
Yeah. So where are you putting Tower of the Gods?
So like I said, it has, like, I like the puzzling and the stuff in Forbidden Woods more. But I do love that, the atmosphere and stuff of Tower of the Gods. Yeah, it's definitely above Forsaken Fortress.
Forsaken Fortress remains the worst dungeon.
And it's got, like, afterwards, too. It's, like, moments before and after. Like, you ring the bell. And then... But then you're going to the whole middle portion, like, the whole Under the Sea. That's its own thing. But, it's epic.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. I feel like you like it more than Forbidden Woods.
They're kind of neck and neck to me.
Yeah. I'm trying to decide what does it. I mean, I like the boss more.
I think I'm leaning a little bit towards Forbidden Woods, actually.
Towards Forbidden Woods? That kind of surprises me.
Yeah. I think when I first played him, and when we replayed him, I was thinking Tower of the Gods.
Yeah, you said it in... And I totally dumped on all of them, which I take back, but...
Yeah. Forbidden Woods I didn't like, but now it has all the elements what make a good Zelda dungeon, I feel. Mm-hmm. I don't think it does many things exceptionally well, but it does everything decent.
I think it does the stuff with the Deku Leaf is all really good.
Yeah.
Like, that's what has me feeling strong about it.
I'm a little negative about that boat portion. I don't like sailing around on the boat in the Tower of the Gods.
Oh, sure.
I'm going to say it goes right in the middle.
Yeah, and you know what I'll say about Forbidden Woods? It also has, you use the boomerang to chop down that flower, and then you get on it, and you ride on the water with the flower. Fun.
Okay.
That's fun stuff, so.
All right, so we got Forbidden Woods, Tower of the Gods, Forsaken Fortress.
All right,
we're going to do one more here.
Spent a lot of time on these dungeons compared to the games.
All right, what do we got here?
Dragon Roost. Ooh. This is iconic for the game. I think more just because of the island and everything it revolves around.
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind, it's hard to consider Dragon Roost without thinking of the island as a whole. Right away, you have a mission, because Valu, this dragon, he sort of plays a moment in this like ceremony for the Rito, and he's all upset. It's another one, there's a reason for you to go into the dungeon. It's like a reason for it to exist. It's not just, some random place. It is kind of an introductory dungeon, I think, but not entirely. I feel
well, they got some of the stuff out of the way already. Mm-hmm. Like, you already know how to swing on the ropes. You can pick up items and stuff like that, all from the Forsaken Fortress and being on the boat. Like, the mechanics at this point.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, here's your first, like, dungeon.
I feel they kind of take it to the next level. So, like, in the Forsaken Fortress, there was the ropes, but here you get the dungeon item, which is the grappling hook. Mm-hmm. And now it sort of changes it a little bit, because now you're not limited to the predetermined ropes where they're at.
A little bit, because there still has to be a thing to hook onto.
Right.
But you can, you don't have to, you can not jump off of something, you can make your own a little bit, your own trajectory.
In some cases you have to grapple onto something, come to a full stop, turn yourself, start swinging.
It's less of in this dungeon where I feel like the grappling hook is fully realized as a cool item. Mm-hmm. But it does pay off later, I will say. Like, once you get, like I said, in combination with other items and stuff. But what it does, like, weirdly, kind of how we were talking about how the Deku Leaf is like a second dungeon item. I think there is sort of a second dungeon item in this, in that it's like the picking up of objects in a weird way. Like, that was kind of like a new thing for this game. Yeah. Like, you did pick up the objects and use them as weapons in Forsaken Fortress. Like, that taught you that you could do this. But in this, it made them into the puzzle.
Yeah.
You had to use it to break walls. Mm-hmm. You had to eventually do a puzzle where you throw a sword to break a wall, light torches and light stuff on fire. You had to throw the pots of water down to make platforms. You had to pick up the bug enemies to put them on switches. You know? Like, that sounds weird to say that's the second dungeon item, but that's like a mechanic that that's the theme of this dungeon more so than the grappling, I think. Yeah.
It teaches you the game a little bit, like the different mechanics of the game. Yeah. And like, this is all the stuff that's new in Wind Waker kind of thing.
Yeah. I felt like it taught, like, you were taught in previous ones, like, that you could do it, and now here you were taught, like, here's how they can be incorporated into puzzles,
Did you like the overall layout of the dungeon?
The layouts in these dungeons I don't fully really think about, because there's not navigation as much. That's not a factor. So I just think of most of them as, like, you do a loop and you come back to where you were, and then you do another loop somewhere else.
This one more so than some of the of the ones we've talked about. The Forbidden Woods has this a little bit where Dragon Roost is very linear. but you're kind of doing loop-de-loops around where you keep coming back to that central room, but from a different location. Oh, there's no boulder here anymore, or you're on a second level.
Yeah.
I like how it's all intertwined. I also like that it is a fire-themed dungeon, I would say, overall.
Sure.
I mean, it's lava all over. But then there's parts where, like, there's a whole segment where you go outside for a little while. It gets you out of the... it's like a different atmosphere a little bit.
When you climb up and you can see Valu.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And then there's parts that are in, like, sort of like dark corridors. That's like those areas where we were talking about where you have to use their weapons to break the like some of the wood planks that are blocking your path. Like,
right. Yeah. There's sort of a mini boss, like where
the moblin.
The moblins.
Yeah.
There's like multiple, right?
Yeah.
Like they fly in more, don't they?
This is a reoccurring theme in the game where they introduce a mini boss as this big bad like villain almost. Like, but then he becomes a normal enemy from that point forward.
Yeah.
And I remember like playing for the first time and you see this moblin because he's so big and he's got this giant stick. And this is one you can hit him and you get his giant, weapon that you can use against him.
Yes.
And it's fun.
And it's like a story moment too with Medley. And you get the item you get isn't just, I mean, you could say that about a lot of the items, but like it's not just like why is there a boomerang here, It's like you're given this grappling hook from Medley and it has like kind of a small story significance. So I like that.
Yeah.
So that, looking back, it's like compared to like a Dark Nut, it's like okay, it's some moblins, but at that moment, it's cool.
Yeah.
And then the boss,
we got good old Goma.
She had a hard time with in her.
In Ganon's Tower.
First time,
I like that. Like Valu plays a role.
Yeah.
In this,
I like that aspect of it.
It's just his tail's just chilling up there.
Yeah, like anywhere you go in Dragon Roost, like Island, you see him or hear him, and then you're outside of the dungeon and you see him, and then you're in the boss room and his tail's down there and you see him.
Yeah.
So that's cool, like that story carried through.
And I like it's kind of a throwback to Legend of Zelda and Ocarina of Time and Oracle of Seasons, where it's like Goma's a reoccurring boss from several Zelda games prior to Wind Waker.
Yeah.
So it's familiar. It's just a new take on Goma.
When I think about it, it's like it's so simple, but it's also the first actual boss.
I like him better than Godon and I like him better than Kali Damos, I would say. Even though it's kind of simple.
Well, it's kind of a shame, I think, that the Halmarak King is like the best boss.
The best boss in the worst dungeon.
The worst dungeon, yeah.
Do we agree this remains the worst dungeon?
This is totally worse than Forsaken Fortress.
Forsaken Fortress is still the worst. Where do you put Dragon Roost? We were kind of saying these two are kind of neck and neck. Forbidden Woods and Tower of the Gods are neck and neck. So.
I actually feel good about this one too. I like I said, I like the puzzle elements in this, and I like the puzzling still more than Tower of the Gods, but definitely not as much as Forbidden Woods. Like the sword throwing and all that, I think it's really fun, but not as fun as like I think doing the puzzles with the Deku Leaf and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I would argue, would you agree, below Forbidden Woods? Or do you feel more strongly about it?
They're kind of neck and neck for me personally.
Oh, okay.
In my own ranking, I thought the breaking point was I really don't like the Kali Damos fight. I just really don't like it.
Yeah.
I think it's the worst boss battle. But I can go either way on this. Do you feel strongly that it's better?
I don't feel strongly about either of the bosses necessarily.
Okay. I like the whole atmosphere of the island, and I like the story of the dungeon.
I will say I like the second half with the grappling hook, even though I said it's not the best use of the grappling hook yet. Which I think says a lot about the grappling hook, that it is better than just in the dungeon it's in. It's better later. But anyway, I like that half more than what you do with the boomerang. Like, I think it's more fun than the boomerang.
So it's got a better item, a better boss, according to me.
Better first half, better second half, I think. Better boss, I'll agree, but like...
Not that Goma is the greatest thing ever here, but Kelly Damos is awful.
Yeah.
And I like Valu. I'm going to say it takes the top spot.
Sure.
Yes!
I'll give you it.
I won that argument.
Like I said, Forbidden Woods, like I said, I like it starts off stronger, I think.
Okay.
But Dragon Roost is more consistent. So I'll concede that point to you. I don't feel bad about conceding that to you. So
okay, this is not a hill to die on here.
No. Now, if you were trying to put Forsaken Fortress up there or something, let us know how you would rank these 4 dungeons. You got to follow along with us, so you gotta just limit yourself here. So, all right, we'll see you next time.